Hello everyone, Mr. Hein, and I am back. All right, so 331, we are starting this new set of, this new section of chapter 3, where we're going to be talking about curve analysis. And this will just be the curve analysis intro. All right. So a few things that we're going to be talking about in this one is what does it mean? What does it mean if f of x is increasing / decreasing? And when I mean by what does it mean if f of x is increasing, decreasing, I mean in terms of its derivative or slope function f prime of x. So I'm going to do some quick exploring with you. So say I graph f of x, see f of x down below, and I'll do a curve that looks something like this. Not too symmetric, but that's okay. All right. And if I asked when is f of x increasing, well, f of x increasing here, so we're looking at when is that slope positive. Well, it's increasing here from 0 to infinity. When is f of x decreasing? And you'd see that it's decreasing as a negative slope from negative infinity down to 0. Right. Now, what's this mean in terms of f prime of x? All right. So remember that f prime of x is the derivative, but I also want you to think about it as the slope function. So what's happening to f prime of x on 0 to infinity? Well, on 0 to infinity, f prime of x has we look at the slopes here, these all have negative slopes. Okay. So then that means on 0 to infinity, f prime of x, or I'm sorry, on negative infinity to 0, f prime of x is less than 0. Okay? It's negative. And what's happening if we look at the slopes from 0 to infinity, well, those slopes, those instantaneous rate of changes, and I know I'm only doing a few, but the infinitely many of them here are all positive. So f prime of x is positive. So what's that mean here? Well, notice that f of x is increasing on 0 to infinity, and f prime of x is positive. So what that means is that if f prime of x is positive, then f of x is increasing. And it actually works the other way around too, where if you flip it, if f of x is increasing, then f prime of x is positive. And the same is true for decreasing and negative, of course. I'm going to use a different notation here, so I'm going to say f prime of x, the derivative, is negative if and only if, because if and only if actually goes both directions, or if this, then this, if this, then this. So f prime of x is negative if and only if f of x is decreasing. Okay. And that's good. And hopefully that you can see that relation right there. All right. And again, think like slopes, as that's really what's happening. What the derivative is on a graph is these are the instantaneous rate of changes, the slopes. Now let's look at an example. We'll just look at one. And let's say, given the graph of f prime of x, given f of x, let's graph its derivative, f prime of x. Okay. So we'll do a different graph for f of x this time. And let's say it looks something like this, where it goes down, and then it's going to go up, and it's going to go down again. So say f of x looks something like that. Now, what would f prime of x look like? Right? So remember, f prime of x is the slope function. So we're looking at the slopes of f of x at each given moment. So the critical point here is that notice the slope is negative. We have negative slopes until at this point, which I made it, so that's at -2. So at -2, it has negative slopes. F of prime of x is negative. And then the slopes become positive until here, which is 1. And then the slopes become negative again. So we have f prime of x is negative, and then on this part, f prime of x is positive, and then as the slope becomes negative, then f prime of x is negative again. So what the graph look like here is before -2, it's negative, so it's coming from the negative direction to positive. And then at 1, it's going from positive slope to negative slope, so it's going from positive to negative. Remember that we're talking just the value-wise, it's going from positive to negative. So in the graph, a sketch of it will look something like this. Just a sketch. And there you have it. Which, from an algebraic point of view, we're pretty close because this right here is some negative ax to the third graph for some value a. And notice that this, if we took the derivative of f of x using the power rule, would be -3a, whatever a is, x squared. Well, notice it's a negative parabola, and that makes sense from an algebraic perspective. All right. So that's kind of the key points that I want you to take away from this lesson, is that if f prime of x is positive if and only if f of x is increasing, and f of prime of x is negative if and only if f of x is decreasing. Mm-hmm. And that's going to come in handy in the coming lesson or two, because if I just want to know, if the question were to ask, the question were, when is f of x increasing, what would you do is you would show where f prime of x is positive, because f of x increasing is equivalent to showing when the derivative is positive. So that's the intro to curve analysis, talking about the derivative, how it represents the slope of the function at all the instantaneous rates of changes at those moments. And when it's positive, that means the function was increasing. If the derivative is negative, it means that the function was decreasing. All right? Hope that helps, and hope the assignment's not too bad. All right, good luck.